Hello everyone, my name is Som. I am the Director of Group Life and Counseling here at the church. I am sitting here with two of my favorite people. We have Stephany and Rosanna. We're doing Greenhouse a little bit different this time around, but we wanted to make sure that we connected with you this month. And so today we're gonna just have a conversation about community and sisterhood and what that means. And I would love to invite you into this conversation. So let's go ahead and get started. I just first want to thank you guys for being here. Maybe you can just share what has been your experience with community in and outside of the church space, or just friendship in general.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Well, I think as far as my earliest years, I remember being about 6, and my parents are pastors, so we had just started a new church in LA, and I was really scared. And I remember that this little blonde-haired girl came up to me and asked to sit next to me. I asked if I could sit next to her, and she's still my friend to this day. But that's like my earliest memory of friendship, because I was so alone and someone made me feel at home.
That's beautiful.
I think mine was more out of like convenience and being in close proximity. I would say my first friend was really a neighbor that moved down the street, and it's like, you're a girl, I'm a girl.
Yeah.
Let's be friends. Yeah. And don't we all wish it was that simple now?
Right. In
like,
adulthood.
Yes. I would say that was really my first, we had nothing in common other than we lived on the same street and we were both girls.
Yeah, I would say for me, I experienced interactions with different people growing up. I didn't grow up in the church. And so I would have to say that my first healthy interaction was like in adulthood, which is crazy to think about and process. But I remember rededicating my life years ago, and someone in the church I didn't ask for it, but they just came alongside me. And it was so instrumental in me growing spiritually. I didn't have to figure everything out by myself. And it felt like not only a mentorship, but it also felt like someone I can be vulnerable with. And I have found that that's not always an easy thing, especially in adulthood as women. And we want to believe that it's always accessible, especially in the church space. But the truth is that it's not always that. And so how have you guys kind of just been prayerful about that coming into your life in this space, where God would surround you with people that, you can, iron sharpens iron, and you can just grow with and build with, and it is a healthy interaction. Mm-hmm. How have you guys tried to process that?
Go ahead. No.
We will get this. We will get this.
I think for me, it's always been probably the thing I've shed the most tears over, is that it doesn't just come, it doesn't just happen. And I think throughout my life, I've always kind of desired to be wanted versus pursuing. And so I've had to spend a lot of work at just going, not just wanting to be friends with someone, hoping they ask me to be friends, but be the pursuer. And that's been a tough realization, that if you don't become the pursuer, you might never be pursued,
Sure.
and to put myself out there, which is vulnerable. Absolutely. To say hey, do you want to come over? Do you want to have your family over? And risk rejection, all those things. I've had to get really comfortable with it. And we've moved several times, so I've had a lot of practice. And God's always been good. Even if there hasn't been the best friend situation, He's provided that best friend throughout 3 or 4 people that are around me. And learning to not get wrapped up in the idea of this best friend piece, and really receiving what God has provided, which is several people who are filling the space of what of a best friend.
Right. Yeah, so multiple people filling in the
Yes.
gaps
Instead
and meeting
of that,
different needs.
I think as a child, you have watched these great movies and shows, and I mean, obviously Friends, where everybody's got these fabulous sets of best friends that are in it till the end. And if you don't have that, you feel less than, when that's not really the biblical picture of friendship. You know, for us, it's, do we have great dinner parties with them, and will they go on vacation with our families, and da-da-da-da-da. But I did want to just take a second and just read what the Bible, I feel like, has a lot to say about friendship. And we usually think about the love verses in 1 Corinthians as being attached to marriage, but it has just as much to say for our friendships. And I just wanted to read the Message version in case you haven't heard it. But it says, love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. Love doesn't, doesn't have a swelled head, doesn't force itself on others, isn't always me first, doesn't fly off the handle, doesn't keep score of the sins of others, doesn't revel when others grovel, takes pleasure in the flowering of truth, puts up with anything, trusts God always, always looks for the best, never looks back, but keeps going to the end.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. That's so good. It reminds me of Proverbs 17:17 that says, a friend loves no matter what. Mm-hmm. It's that unconditional love. And it's, you know, it's mentioned a lot in the Bible, but it's hard to find. And you mentioned about it just being one of your needs, that you wanted to have that, but I think that's everyone's basic need.
Oh, for sure.
Right? It's the way God created us. He's a relational God. He created us to be relational beings. So what happens when we're not having that need met, and what does that mean for our spiritual journeys?
For sure. Yeah. I would say probably very similar to you. As far as really good, healthy friendships, they've not developed into my adulthood. I think my family and I moved to Indiana a couple of years ago. Just kind of, the Lord told us to go, and we went, and we knew nobody. And I think that was a really big step for me to realize how much prayer involved in my friendship life. And I really just prayed for a friend. I'm like, I don't need a lot. I just need one good one. One good friend that would understand what I'm going through spiritually, what I'm going through as a wife, following my husband for a job, uprooting my children. It was just, there was so much weight to it. And I ended up finding a really good friend who happened to be a pastor, and she was praying the same thing. And she said, you know, Stephany, nothing happens unless it's prayed for first. And we prayed for it first. Yeah. And so I think that prayer is a huge point that we don't necessarily think about, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm going to pray for a friend. Yeah. But it's integral in every area of our lives. So I would say for me, definitely, I've had to commit that to prayer because, you know, back early in my childhood and adolescence, I had been burned a lot with friendships. So I became very much guarded, and almost to the point where I just didn't want friendships anymore. They were more trouble than they were worth, I think, that I started becoming jaded. But when I committed that to prayer, the Lord was super faithful to provide a friendship that was based on Him and not based on dinner parties or vacations. I completely agree with that.
That's so good. I just love what you mentioned about how we can have these really unfortunate experiences. How do we overcome those, though? You know, how do we move forward with trust? How do we even begin to open ourselves back up? Of course, there's a healing process that has to take place. But for our listeners, how do we give them some practical steps on how to do that? And maybe the first step is just identifying that there is pain there, that there is a need for healing. But what do we do next, right? I'm kind of using community and friendship interchangeably, but it's like we can come to a small group, or we can come to these church circles. Yeah. But I think that a group life will serve a certain purpose. But how do we take it to the next level, right? Mm-hmm. Where, I really feel like I can be vulnerable with this person, or I feel like this can be a relationship where they can hold me accountable. Like, they can bear their burdens, and vice versa. And so how do we get to that place? How do we even begin to heal from past hurts and still be open?
I think, for me, it's been a really long process, because for for many years, I was hardened by a lot of past experiences as well. But I feel like the more that I prayed for God to make my heart tender in those areas and to help me to release past pain and not throw it upon a new person and to do those kind of things, I was able to enter in with more hope. And I also think that there's been a huge change for me in how I enter into friendships, because if you're going in to be validated, to have someone else say that you're worthy of the space that you're in, it's hard to really show yourself or be vulnerable, because no one finds their worth in their weakness. And so if you can go in with more of that deep knowing that you are worthy from Jesus, that he sent us, that he died for your sins, that you are worthy of all spiritual blessings before you even step foot into a conversation with another female, and that they don't need to do that for you, then you're allowed the freedom to enter in as yourself and show your weaknesses, because that person's not going to say you're worthy. Jesus is. And it's such a more freeing place, but it's so hard because you're so tempted to find your value in this world from other humans. And so it's hard to connect. But I think the more you let God's words wash over you and spend time in the Word and understand that your worth, I think the easier it is to step in and be vulnerable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say some practical steps. One, yes, insert yourself into church spaces with like-minded people. We have Greenhouse, but I mean, I've heard testimonies from that where women have connected with the people at their tables, and they've given them job opportunities. For somebody who needed a job, like they've started to build friendships. Like it has been an answered prayer. And I would say, second to placing yourself and just stepping outside of your comfort zone, going into those communities, would also be prayer. I can't emphasize that enough. Like Stephany, I have been and still am, praying about, Lord, send those people into my life, right? I cherish the acquaintances, I cherish the day-to-day interactions, but we need people we can be vulnerable with. We need people to hold us accountable. We need people we can just be so transparent with, where you can say, I'm struggling with this. Will you hold me accountable in this area? And it doesn't leave that space. And I feel like that's a big one, And so second to prayer, I think just stepping outside and saying, okay, I'm choosing not to lead my pursuit of friendship based on my past hurts.
Yeah, 100%, sure.
Yeah, so I just think that intentionality, and so I think that's really good. Do you guys have anything to add?
I mean, I would agree. For the sake of being vulnerable, I would say that this has been a struggle for me, and it will probably continue to be a struggle for me. I'm praying it won't, but I'm just, to be honest, I think that it hasn't been until recently that I've started that idea of opening back up and being vulnerable. And I think because I've always had friendships in the church space. So some people, they always say, I was lost and then I was found, and then I found this group of believers that just, spoke to my heart, and now we're best friends. And I think for me, that fairy tale was a little distorted as a young girl who, it wasn't my position, but being in the position where I was a pastor's child, I did always feel like I was in the fishbowl. And while my parents didn't necessarily put that on me, the churches that we were in definitely did. And so for me, I was very tainted by community in a place where you're supposed to find community. Yes. So I think for me, I completely believe in being vulnerable and going to church, but also just recognizing that a church is a place for broken people. And so hurt people can hurt people. And realizing that, we're all growing and we're all trying to find the same thing. We're all trying to find connection. We're all trying to follow Jesus. But like I said, to be vulnerable, it has been really difficult for me. And it hasn't been until probably about 3 years where I've really felt open to say, you know what, this is church and it's messy and I'm still gonna find connection in it. So I would agree with absolutely everything that you said about the practicality of it, but for the sake of being vulnerable, I just think it can be difficult to just leave your pain at the door, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
It's worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so good. Anything you want to add, Ro?
I think, like, totally agree with everything you're saying.
I also think that for me, one of the biggest things is, I was trying to remember exactly. So I think a lot of my past, I was in such dire need of friendships because you're moving to these new places, and so you get out there and you share it all. You just keep finding, I would try, like I'd meet somebody and I'd just dump it all out, dump it all out, hoping for this deep connection. Right. But I forgot to be curious.
That's so good.
And I think practically, a curious person draws people to them. It's not just wanting to be known, but also wanting to know the other. And sometimes you can get so wrapped up in the idea of being known that you forget to be curious and ask the questions and allow people to feel close to you. And so I think that's been really helpful.
That's so good. That's so good. What that reminds me of is, so when I view friendship, I kind of view it like it's multifaceted. There's so many different levels, and to one friend, I might share a certain area of my life, and to another, I might share a completely different area. Yeah. But as you were sharing that, Rosanna, it was like, okay, I'm a fully transparent person. Yeah. I can be transparent with anyone. That's not everyone's ministry, amen? But it's mine, right? So I can be transparent, and sometimes that can be received by another person that is friendship, right? I can be transparent with everyone, but I can't be vulnerable with everyone.
Yes.
Right? I can't talk about all of my struggles with every single person, right? So there's these different levels, I think. And not to say that one matters more than the other, but I do think that there is, we should be transparent with certain groups of people. We should be vulnerable, but we also
there's a wisdom to
exactly.
it. Yes.
And when you said curious, I just thought about discernment. And knowing how much we open up, not to put up a wall, but to be discerning in that moment, because having safe people is key as well. Yeah, safety in friendship. So. Anything else you guys want to add? I love this conversation.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Discernment is key. Very key.
Very good. Well, I hope this conversation added value to your life. We are praying that God will continue to surround you, not just with community, but authentic, godly friendships, where it is an iron sharpening iron, where it is something that will not only add value to your life, but push you to be who God's called you to be. So until next time, we'll see you at the next greenhouse. Bye.
Praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, nothing is better than you.
You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only